Good morning, students. I'm going to go ahead and try to complete the entire animation assignment that you were given this week. I know that the tutorial that I gave was kind of generic, and there are some more specific questions. So I'm just going to do the assignment, and I'm going to record myself while I'm doing it. So fair warning, this is not going to be clean and produced. This is just going to be me working. So let's get to it. First thing I want to do is create a floor for my character to stand on. Oh, by the way, I've created this just to save time. You don't want to watch my recording screen. The only other thing I've done is import the Kenny character assets. So I've done a little bit of work to set up here. All right, let's go ahead and create a ground. So create a plane right there, and then I'm going to scale it up so I can have lots of room to run around. Okay. And then let's rename that ground. And let's import a character. So I'm going to use the little guy. And before I go any further, let's look at the skins. And actually, there's this animals package that I kind of like. Oh, excuse me. So let's go ahead and make it this guy right here. Let me zoom in a little bit more. Push F to frame it. That way I can see it a little bit better. There we go. Okay, so I'm gonna reposition this guy to 0, 0, 0. And let's see where the camera is looking at him. Okay, so now I want to, let's put some gravity on this guy. So let's add the component. We're going to give him a box collider, and we're going to give him a rigid body. And then looks like this rigid body is not, this box collider is not where it's supposed to be, so let's go ahead and edit that. I want to get into orthogonal view so I can see it straight on. There we go. I'm going to widen this just a little bit. There we go. When this character runs, his arms will go to his sides, so I don't want the box collider to go to the tips of his arms. But yeah, that looks good. So now if I play the game, there he goes. All right, now let's see. Let's go ahead and write a script. I'm going to go back to assets. I'm going to create a folder for my scripts. And let's create a C# script. This is my player controller. We'll spell player correctly. Okay, so first thing, let's go ahead and make the character move. So, we're going to have a public float called speed. And that is going to equal, let's start off at 5.0 f. And then we are also going to have a public float called vertical input. And then when we update, we want to say that the vertical input is equal to whatever button we're pressing to go forward or backwards. So input.getAxis vertical. Then we want to, actually before I do anything else, I want to comment that this is the move forward and backward. Transform.translate vector3.forward, and then we want to multiply that times time.delta time times speed times vertical input. Okay, Control S to save, and then let's go back and let's see that it's working. It is not. And hopefully you see why. It's because I forgot to put my player controller script onto my character. And also, while we're at this, let's rename this to Hero, because he is a hero. Okay, there we go. Moving back and forth. It's looking good. Let's go ahead and before I move further, let's add rotation. Okay, so now I'm going to have a public float. I'm going to call this rotation speed, rot speed, equals, let's go ahead and say 5.0 f as well. And then public float horizontal input. And then just like the other one, we'll say horizontal input is equal to input dot get axis horizontal. Then we're going to transform.rotate. And remember, the first argument in rotate is the line that we're rotating around, which would be vector3.up. And then how many degrees are we rotating? We are rotating rot speed times time dot delta time times horizontal input. Control S to save. Now I should be able to move back and forth and rotate. There we go, back, forwards, backwards, and rotating. No, rotating's not working. So actually rotate is working. It's just super slow. Okay, so let's go back to the code and let's speed that up. Instead of 5, let's do 15. That's still really slow. For some reason that didn't update. Okay, that's a little bit better. I'd actually like to increase that to 20. Okay, so now I've got movement. Let's also go to camera. I'm gonna take my character and let's attach the camera to my character so that way it'll follow him. So I'm going to move my camera up. And then I'm going to rotate it. There we go. Okay, so now that it's like that, I'm going to go ahead and take main camera and I'm going to make hero the parent. I'm just going to drag it on right there. So now that it's set up like that, I should have the camera moving with my character. And that's kind of hard to see, but I am inching towards the ground. And now I'm turning. Okay, so that's working. All right, now all that to say, let's go ahead and get started on some animation. So if I click on my hero does have an animator, so I'm gonna leave that there. If that wasn't there, I could get rid of it. I could add an animator, but this one's already here. So this one already came with the character small avatar attached to it. Here's all the different avatars that I could add to it, but I do want to keep that. So we are going to start adjusting the animation. We're going to go to Window, and we're going to open up the Animator. So Animation, Animator. Okay, now we see we've got nothing in here. So now let's go to Animations, and I'm just going to start off with an idle animation. So we're just going to take that, drag it in. No? Okay, I'm not sure what the error was there, but I'm going to go ahead and just create my own animator. So if I click on here on the hero, it's got this animator, but I've gone ahead and just right-clicked it and removed it. So I'm going to go ahead and add. I'm going to make a folder. Animators. Okay, and then right here I'm going to create an animation controller. Okay, and I'm going to call this hero animation. Okay, and now I can go and drag that onto, oops, not that one, this one. Okay, so now I have an animator here. The controller is the hero animation. The avatar is the small avatar. Okay, so yes, we'll apply the root motion, and now if I go to the animator, here we go. So I've got the any state, the entry, and then the exit. So let's go ahead and go into our animations. And I'm going to start off with just the simple idle animation. I just drag it in, and now it says root idle. And what I should see here now is, now that this animator's there, running the game should show me the idle animation. Okay, so you see right there, instead of the character standing there in the T-pose, he's kind of moving a little bit, kind of huffing. So now let's make him move differently. Okay, so in my animator, I also want this character to be able to run. So now I'm going to say the character is going to start idling, and then it's going to go to running. So I'm going to right click here and make a transition from idle to run. I'm going to make another transition to go from run to idle. I need to add a parameter in order to tell it when to run and when to idle. So I'm going to go ahead and add one. This is going to be a float, and I'm going to call this one speed. Right now speed is 0, and I'm going to say that I want this character to run. Right here, here's the condition. When should you start running? So I'm clicked right here on this transition from idle to run. You should start running when speed is greater than 0. And then you should go back. You should go from running to idling when speed is less than 1. Okay, now this speed is attached to the animation controller. So that means that I need to give my script a way of accessing the animation controller. So I am going to make a private animator, and that is going to be, I'm just going to call it anim, short for animator. And then right here in my start, I'm going to say anim is equal to get component, which component? The animator. Parentheses, because that's a method. Okay, and now also I want to use the hash codes to access the animator parameters. Remember, I could access it by its name, but hash codes are faster, and since we're going to be accessing animations a lot, we want to use the fastest method possible. So the hash codes are integers, so I've got a private integer, and I'm going to call this speed hash is equal to animator dot string to hash, and then the name of that was speed. And then let me just Control S to save. And let's go back to make sure, okay, it has to match exactly. That was speed with a lowercase. So we're good. Okay, so now, right here when I have vertical movement, I want to say vertical input equals input get axis vertical, and then I want to say we have our animator, anim, dot, I want to set one of my floating parameters, and then this takes 2 arguments. The first one is which one am I wanting to set? Well, I want to set the one identified by the speed hash, and I want to set it to whatever the vertical input is right now. So what this is going to do is anytime I'm moving, it's going to let the animator know that I am moving, and that's going to trigger the animation, and then if I stop moving, it's going to let it know that I've stopped moving, and it's going to trigger the idle animation. So I've already saved it. Let's make sure that's working now. Okay, so here I am. You can see me idling, and if I push forward, I should start running. So here we go. Hey, there we go. I'm running, and I'm turning. Then I'm going to stop. Then I'm going to start again. Stop. Backwards. Okay, now here's the thing. I am just kind of sliding backwards. So when I run forward, it runs, but when I go backwards, it just slides. So, and that's because when I go backwards, my speed is -1. So, what I want to do here is, let's go back to my script, and I'm gonna guess here, but what I want is the absolute value of the vertical input. So if I remember correctly, it's math dot absolute value. So remember, absolute value will take a negative and make it positive. So let's try that again. See if I'm moving forward and backwards now. Forward, it's good. Backwards, backwards is also good. You know what? Let's go ahead and add a material to the ground because I can't really tell when I'm moving. So I think the only materials I have here right now are animal skins. So we're just gonna stick an animal skin or a character skin on the ground. That looks a little weird, but that's okay. It's gonna let me know that I'm moving. Okay, forward, backwards. Forwards, backwards. Now, you might notice a little bit that I'm kind of sliding in between. So I start sliding and then I start running. I don't want that. So let's stop this. Let's go to the animator. And the thing that I want to look at here is exit time. So if I go here, if I say it has exit time means it's going to finish the animation before it goes on to the next one. So I'm going to turn exit time off right here, and I'm also going to turn exit time off right here. And so now it should be able to interrupt the idle animation in order to start running. So as soon as I start, it starts. Going backwards and forwards. There we go. So it's looking pretty good right now. All right, so now let's get a jump animation in there. So in order to get a jump animation, I need to add force to the rigid body. So I'm going to go ahead and say, jumping. Nah, we don't need that because rigid body is going to apply to more stuff. So we are going to have a private, no, oh my gosh, private rigid body, and we're going to call that player RB, player rigid body. Okay, and then right here at the start, we're going to get that player RB is equal to get component rigid body, that. And then I want to say jump. Now remember, I want to jump if the spacebar is being pressed. So if input dot get key down is equal to key code dot space. Okay, so if we are pressing the space bar, then I want to jump, which means I'm going to take the player rigid body and I'm going to add force. How much force am I going to add? Oh, I forgot to declare that variable, so I should have a jump space here. And I want to say I've got a public float called jump force. And for now, we'll call it 10.0f, semicolon. Okay, so I want to add force. Let's see. Vector 3 dot up times jump force. And then I want to specify that this is force mode dot impulse. So that's a one-time jump. Okay, let's test that. Let's make sure it works. Okay, there's my jump. And then if I keep on tapping it, I can keep on double jumping. And then I'm gonna fall back down. Hopefully I fall back down. There we go. Pew. Okay, so let's go ahead and add, oh, well, I need to see if I'm touching the ground too. So what I need to do is I've got my ground here. I have on the ground, I have a mesh collider, and that's what's letting the ground be a ground. So I'm going to also add a box collider, and I'm going to make it a trigger. So let me just make sure that the ground still works. Okay. Ground still works. And let's go into the script. And for my jumping, I'm going to add a public bool called isJumping. And that's going to start off as false because at the beginning we are not jumping. Now right here, once we press space, we want to say isJumping is true. And also we want to say if I press space and I'm not isJumping. So if I press space and I'm not jumping, then start jumping and make isJumping true. That way I can't keep on jumping. Now we also want to make it so we hit the ground, and once we hit the ground it says that we're not jumping anymore. So I'm going to have a public void on trigger enter. And I'm going to say once we collide with something that isJumping is false. Okay, so now I jump, and then I hit the ground, and now I'm going to try to double jump. Okay, double jump no longer works. All right, let's get back into the script. So for my jumping, I'm going to say that we have a private int isJumping hash, and that is equal to my animator dot string to hash is jumping. Okay, so I haven't made the is jumping parameter in my animator yet, but let's go ahead and write some code for this. So right here, I'm going to say is jumping is true, and then I want to say that I'm going to go to my animator dot set bool is jumping hash, and I want to set that to true. Then I'm going to copy this because I also want to set it to false when I'm not jumping. So let's go to is jumping right here, and then also set that hash to false. All right, now in order to make that happen, let's go ahead and go to the animator. So I've got idle and run, and now I want to go into my animator, my animations, and I want to find a jump animation. So let's go ahead and take that jump animation and put it in right here. And then I should be able to go from idling to jumping, and then from jumping back to idling. I should also be able to go from running to jumping. Let's go ahead and add the parameter. Is jumping is a bool, and it's initially false, so I'm not going to check that off. And so we should go from root to jump if is jumping is true. And we should go from root to idle if is jumping is false. And we should be going from root to run, so I should only start running if speed is greater than 0 and is jumping is false. This is going to make it so it doesn't get confused and start running in midair. So if speed is less than 1 and is jumping is false. We should go from running to jumping if is jumping is true. Okay, so now everything should be set. My jump animation should work. Okay, I've got that little jump there. Now it doesn't quite look natural because the exit time is still allowing it to exit that animation. So I'm going to go to this one. I'm going to turn off exit time. That way this animation can be interrupted. Okay, so now idle, jump, and land. Jump, land, run, jump, land and go into a run, jump, jump backwards, or walk backwards, jump. Okay. All right, so for the last one, we want to add another action. So let's say, let's go to the animator and let's look at some of these actions. There's this attack action, or a punch. Let's do a punch. So I'm going to take punch and let's drag that onto here. And for simplicity, I'm going to make it so I can only punch while I'm idling. So I'm going to make a transition to here. And in order to punch, I'm going to add an ability called a trigger. Is punching. Okay, so the difference between a bool and a trigger is that a trigger is going to be activated once, and then once this animation is completed, it's going to untrigger. So it's kind of like a Boolean, but a little bit more automatic. So I've got is punching, so let's go back to our scripting. And we're going to say that I have a private int called isPunching hash. That is going to equal the animator dot string to hash is punching. Okay, so now let's go ahead and add a punch. So I'm going to say if input dot get mouse button down, and then you know, I haven't been able to get the mouse button dot left to work, so 0 is the left mouse click. And then I'm going to do anim dot set trigger is punching hash. And then there's no second argument for that because that means I'm just going to trigger it once and then it's going to go back to normal. So Control S to save that. And then let's play it and see how that looks. Okay, so it looks like he just punched. Yep, he just punched. Okay, so I think the problem is I didn't set this. Okay, so for this transition, this should happen if is punching. Now again, this doesn't have any other settings right here because it's a simple trigger. If is punching gets triggered, then it's going to activate. Okay, so this time he didn't punch. So I'm going to move around, make sure everything's still working, and then I'm going to left click to punch. Okay, so now he's in the end of his punching animation. So let's go back to the animator and let's make sure that he can return. Okay, left clicking to punch, and then he's back. Left clicking to punch, and he's back. Walking, jumping, punching. Okay, now just like the other ones, I'm clicking and there's a little bit of a delay between the click and the punch. And that's because of the exit time. So going from the idle to the punch, I'm going to say no exit time, but coming back, I do want to exit time because I want him to finish that animation. So let's see how that looks. Punch. 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 Okay. All right, there we have it. I am now done with my homework for the week. So I hope that you found that helpful, and good luck with your game design.